What's going on, XLNC? Jack here. Me and Jay have spent the last 3 or 4 hours now. It's now 5 AM. We've basically been dissecting the Black Ops 2 trailer for you guys. We spent a lot of time on this, so if you like the video and enjoy what you're about to see, please smash that like button. And yeah, leave your feedback and any thoughts about the game, any theories you have, down below. Okay guys, so getting straight into this, the first thing you see is the fact that some text appears talking and introducing us to Sergeant Frank Woods, who of course was Mason's partner in Black Ops 1. It also comes up with the date, June the 19th, 2025.
Aside from the fact that I'm still alive, none of this surprises me.
As the Trek logo comes in, 2 years really stand out, shown in 3 dates, very faintly shown in the background. These are the years 1986 and 2025. These are 2 time periods on which the user will play in the game. These are played both from Mason's family perspectives. One will follow on immediately from Black Ops, with you playing as the Sergeant Mason as we know him from the original game. And the second will be from Mason's grandson's shoes in the year 2025. The time frame is set by showing what appears to be a futuristic airline landing in a futuristic airport out at sea, further reinforcing the idea that this is the year 2025. The next thing we see is what I'm going to be referring to as a quadrotor in a docking station with the word Charlene etched into the side of it. This is etched similarly to the word Sally that was etched into the M1911 during the original Black Ops game as a bit of a zombies teaser. It is now that we are shown the first bit of military machinery in the game, which is a robotic tank fitted with a Gatling gun. This immediately cuts to what appears to be some kind of Chinese docking station launching a missile. We can assume this due to the red star both on the rocket itself and the small lorry seen below it as it launches. We can now see an X-47 Pegasus flying through what appears to be some kind of smoky city skyline sky. This immediately cuts to an F-35 jet crashing into the top of Los Angeles. We can now see some hovercopters taking off, followed by some quadrotors firing in the direction of what appears to be one of the docking stations. We now cut to the first person view of one of these flying helicopters, implying that this is somehow linked to one of the missions in the game. The next thing we see is a protagonist looking down on a watch. The man on his left has a wound to his right leg, implying some kind of gunshot wound. And as we look at his heads-up display, it says a few key things. First thing that's worth noticing is the fact it says the 3rd of October 2025. This implies that the war goes on for at least 4 months. It also says the temperature is 42 degrees Celsius, so somewhere along the line global warming has happened. And the next curious thing is D. Mason is almost labelled as the name of the person wearing the watch, implying he's somehow related to Alex Mason from the original Black Ops game. The next thing we see is what appears to be a man wearing a suit armed with a gun walking through what could possibly be an airport scanner, judged by a man in uniform walking in the same direction as him, slightly behind him, but also by the fact there is some kind of builder stood behind the scanner. This scanner could be part of some kind of futuristic check-in system. At 44 seconds we can see someone carrying in some kind of pod, perhaps part of an aircraft, and a jet above him firing at a building. We can see a US Army logo shown on the bottom wing of the jet, perhaps suggesting friendly fire as the machines turn against the US. At 50 seconds we can see some drones which appear to be in front of a refinery base. The buildings in the top left is similar to the one shown in colour on Mason's wrist during the previous watch display part of the video. It's always worth going back and having a look, and you can clearly see that it's the same building. At 51 seconds we can see a walking robotic tank next to a foot soldier, implying that they're working alongside each other. And
What happens when the enemy steals the keys?
at 57 seconds we can see an Avenger drone, CB-2025 is written on its back wing, and we can see the US Army logo clearly on its wings and nose. It's also distinct by the buildings as well as the palm trees that this is in LA. At 59 seconds we can see a Los Angeles evac route sign along with a police roadblock along a big busy high street. There appears to be Avenger drones attacking the city, and we can see a skyscraper exploding in the distance. At 1 minute 1 second we can see a man walk into a mansion / base, which doesn't appear to be American, so it looks of some kind of Asian origin. There also appears to be some guy on the left who looks slightly like a stormtrooper from the angle he stood at, and the man on the right appears to have some kind of rifle in his hand, perhaps an M14. At this point we can also see what appears to be a large group of Arabian men in a crowd. In the distance we can see a line of men stood on top of a wall, including one man dressed in white who appears to be shown to the crowd who are jeering on for his execution. If we pause the video very carefully at this police chopper scene, we can see what appears to be some kind of ground launched missile, perhaps a SAM turret, being shot up into the air, trying to target the drones as they take control of the city. Now we go into the cockpit of what appears to be an F-35 Lightning. We can get this from the fact that it says I-Core Free inside the cockpit in tiny lettering if you look carefully. You may want to put this in HD and have a bigger look. Me and Jay did some research on this, and this is part of the hood layout inside the cockpit of the current F-35 Lightning aircraft. We also looked at pictures of this aircraft, and it looks incredibly similar to the other images that you can see of the plane within the cockpit images. At 1:06 we see some missiles take out a police chopper over the highway from what seems to be a jet, judged by the angle of which the missiles are being launched at. If we look very slowly at this moment as a pistol is reloaded in the back of a plane, we can see it seems to be reloaded in a very unusual fashion, with what seems to be some kind of spiky texture at the end of the gun. Should we pause the video now very carefully and look at Mason's chest armour, we can see what appears to be the SOG logo, or SOG logo, and the gun seems to be some kind of XM. We can now see two soldiers making their way in what seems to be some kind of stealthy manner. Looking at them carefully, neither of them seem particularly muscly, particularly the one at the back in this shot. However, as we now switch to the next shot, the one in the foreground seems to have particularly feminine eyes. It might just be me, but that one doesn't seem particularly male. I have looked in and read about this, and there was a rumour flying around that you may play as a female character in some parts of Black Ops 2. At 1:18 we can see Mason T-bowing on top of a building with some people parachuting on the left side. He's also holding an M16, and there also seems to be a mysterious light on the right side, which could just be the sun. However, it seems incredibly bright, and it could be somehow linked within the storyline. At 1:25 we can see Mason holding an XM8 and another SOG member holding their new USP, as we're going to be calling it in this, as it looks similar to the USP gun model. We can see them by the highway which was shown earlier with the helicopter being escorted. If you look very carefully you can in fact see the evacuation sign in the distance, suggesting that perhaps the highway has collapsed or the road is now out of commission. At 1:26 we can see what me and Jay have decided and come to the conclusion is possibly a VTOL hovercopter. We've given it this name as it doesn't really have a name, however it looks like some kind of weird helicopter Harrier hybrid taking off into the sky. We can also see at 1:28 walking robotic tanks surrounded by soldiers and quad rotors. Note the fact that in this situation the quad rotors aren't shooting at the people on the ground, suggesting that they're probably supporting the soldiers as they make an advancement somewhere. We can now see two men moving behind some kind of movable cover as they make an advancement. Perhaps that will play a role in the campaign, or maybe even online with the ability to push cover. If you look really carefully as well in the background, you can see a man with two RPGs on his back, as you can just see the tip of them poking over his right shoulder. The camera now cuts to Mason, and if you look carefully on his back you can see what appears to be some kind of large rifle, which we think could probably be a sniper rifle judged by the scope. In his primary weapon slot we can see an XM8 as well, which is a futuristic SCAR which also featured in the Crysis 2 game. Oddly enough, at 1:33 we suddenly cut from all these LA scenes to what appears to be some kind of Arab setting shown earlier. We can see a few men falling from what appears to be a blown up building. One of them is distinctly holding an AK-47 in his hand as he falls, so that's probably going to be making a return into the game. We switch at 1:34 to some men riding on the back of the horses. I did some research into this, and the storyline suggests that this comes from the 1980s period of the game. If you look very carefully, the far left man appears to be holding some kind of AK. You can't make it out from here, but it seems significantly smaller than what would normally be an AK-47. I'm assuming that this could be an AK-74U, as it's just a hunch, or it could just be the odd angle which the guy is at. It's also worth noticing at this point that although there's a helicopter and a jet flying over, there's none of the futuristic kind of air vehicles seen before, further reiterating the fact that it's probably from the older period of the game. We can see a police officer skidding on the floor, and the camera begins to zoom into the vehicle in the distance. Suddenly we become the first person driver of this vehicle, and if you pause at the right moment you can see the screen shows the message system standby, and 6 missile icons are shown to be engaged, 3 on the left and 3 on the right of the screen. It now cuts back to what appears to be the 1980s horse scene, as we can see a man on a mounted MG on the back of a lorry shooting up into the air, implying that he is not being chased by the people in the horse, but is in fact leading some kind of convoy on a mission somewhere. At 1:38 we cut back to LA in definitely the year 2025, as we can see all the Avenger drones flying all over the sky, taking over the area. This continues on with the highway collapsing, before we see a man appear to run and jump off the top of a tram, or rather train system. It's hard to tell what gun he's holding, however it looks like it could be some kind of rifle. We now see jets fly through the skies of LA between the skyscrapers again, as suddenly a crane collapses into a building. We get to see some quadrotors taken off again in what seems to be some kind of Middle Eastern setting, suggesting that the storyline in the year 2025 won't simply revolve around a US location such as LA. We now switch to a cargo ship. It's hard to tell what time period this is from, however, the fact that it's a ship would seem to suggest it could be from the 80s, as suddenly what appears to be some kind of drone from the sky is launched into it, blasting crates everywhere. We now cut into the inside of the plane and see 2 Secret Service soldiers in a helicopter, one of whom is wearing a gas mask. At 1:47 we can see some missiles being shot towards the ground by an X-47 Pegasus. This could be multiplayer, as there is a kill feed shown, as well as an indicator at the bottom of the screen saying that the user has got a kill with the X-47 Pegasus. At 1:48 we see a soldier holding an LMG with a box magazine. If you pause at this very precise moment, you can in fact see the Black Ops logo on his chest plate. Okay guys, that's me done for today with this trader analysis dissection. I appreciate that this video is fairly long, however if you're still watching it now, please smash that like button. It's 9 AM on Wednesday now. I've not actually slept. I've spent the last 7 hours doing this video, so if you appreciate the effort, appreciate my lack of sleep, I'm going to go for a big power nap today. But thank you for watching guys. Smash that like button, leave a comment. It's a lot of effort to get these videos done as soon as possible, and any feedback, any likes, you just hit one button, it takes no effort at all. So if you could do that for me, that'd be amazing. It's me, Jack, signing off. Thank you for watching the video guys. I'm out.